And so everybody's here. Welcome to our Lucky 13. This time we're going to go back a little bit because, well, there's a lot of progress in your folders, and by just going through them with our team, we have a little bit of discussions about your progress and what you need to do. And well, let's just get into it because last time we did a little bit longer stream. So Clary, did you had any time to update your folder? I hope you did. Okay, this starts to look good. And of course, you still need to render it in a little bit better quality, and probably the snipping tool should not be the part of your screenshot. Remember that the screenshots that we need should be made like this. You need to do the full window of your video frame buffer. Next to it, you should place your inspiration. By the way, I already mentioned this, but this is a really amazing inspiration. So good job there. And yeah, everything looks good. So just carry on. Maybe you could actually add a little bit more shots from this interior because wow, it actually looks good. Probably we will need a little bit more action around here. This is actually something I would say that is going to look amazing when done. So definitely try to focus on it a little bit more. And you're also invited to talk a little bit more on our group chat. So good job here. Nothing else to add. Now let's go to Donald's folder. I see that you already started your next project. That's a new one for me. Okay, which one is this already your first draft? You got really good at it. Is the background image styling setting affected when doing 360s? No, it's not. Basically, what you need to remember about is that when working on your 360, you will have to have some kind of consistent background. So I'm going to supplement you, or at least give you a good example where to look for your backgrounds. In this case, it's best to add some kind of HDRI behind some items, but more about it, I'm just going to show you more about it when we get exactly into the shot. So your shots start to look way better, but we still need to do some tone mapping. You can basically see that with a little bit different colors, we get a little bit different read out of your scene. It does look amazing, don't get me wrong, because it does, but still, we're going to have to focus a little bit more on your shot as a whole. So we need a little bit more color correction if you want to go closer to if you want to get closer to your inspiration. And I'm not sure how did you map this element, but I'm pretty sure we will have to fix some parts of it. I really love this carpet. Don't know where did you get this texture, but it does look good. So the key element in this interior is that it has the same tone mapping. Okay, it's a photo, heavily over photoshopped, but you can see that all the items in this room are basically in the same tone: blue, blue, bluish, bluish, close to blue, 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 again bluish. So this is very important, and in your shot we don't have the same consistency. Even though we have let's say warm colors, it's not exactly that, because we got strong color bleed coming from this wall. So you can see that here we've got a little bit more orange, and here we've got a little bit more white color, because the light is just reflecting, and that's how it is supposed to look like. And there's nothing wrong with your setup, but we still need to work a little bit more with this tone mapping. Try to experiment more with your sofa's color, because the material itself looks really good, but I would say that it could use a little bit more work in the tone department. Next thing is, of course, your overall feel in this shot. It looks good, it looks amazingly good, but we just need to focus a little bit more. This is not exactly something we want to try to achieve using Photoshop. We still can get to a little bit better effects using just the 3ds Max. And one peculiar thing that I like to point out is that lights like this are heavily dimmed in photos like that. Well, the thing is that if you use only the light material, you won't get the same effect as you probably would like to. So I'm just going to show you what you can do. By the way, your shots are really amazing, but we need to make them just a teeny bit better. So by combining multiple techniques. So it can be Corona light to just create this simple light, or it can be this globe made out of regular material. So let's just do that and add advanced options, this self-illumination. Since this is not our main light, we're not going to use it as such. So why should you do it this way? First of all, the light color is somewhere near orangish, and now you can basically see that this light is going to look a little bit better. Why? Because it still has some kind of room for reflection. So your viewers are going to look for this kind of detail. If you just add in a full light sphere that is going to be made out of consistent one color, it's not exactly what you are supposed to do, but still it does look good. By the way, guys, what's the hardest part so far with your shots? I'm really amazed how this looks like, because, you know, it's actually something that is really nice to see, like image-wise. It's really good to look at. You may want to add a little bit more to your frame. Just make the camera angle a little bit wider. So we're going to play with it a little bit more. Miroslava, let's just play with your exposure. Please, just spam me just spam me a lot. We need to work on it, and we will try to do it. Of course, Tony is putting a lot of effort as well, so you can basically befriend him and ask him as many questions as you need. This shot looks, again, way better, but we still are not getting to the same tone. The saturation, oh, you added the background, nice work. So the saturation already worked tremendously good. You can see that the colors now are readable. They are as we expected. Still could be better if we actually had inspiration next to this shot. Oh, it's here. Is it here? Yeah. So now you can actually see what's happening. As I said earlier, this background is heavily photoshopped in your shot. That's why we've got this blue cutout coming from the window. In reality, the shot would not look like this. But as for the curtains, I would say that we've got great improvement. The material itself looks amazing. We could play a little bit more back and forth with darker tones. And your coffee table, even though it's a little bit different design right now, it's not necessarily something that takes away. But now you cannot see the fireplace, and we've got a lot of stuff happening around here, so it's hard to read the room. You may want to play around and move some of your furniture from shot to shot, but well, actually it does look good. I see that you pretty much remade almost all of those images one-to-one and added something extra, so that's also cool. Okay, so carry on. If you have any specific questions, or you would like to learn or you want to know a little bit more about your own shot, what to do, and you're not sure how to do it, we can do it for you or just help you with it. Okay, not do it for you, explain you how you can do it. But again, some of you, and I mean Theodore, asked if we have to use chamfer on all of our surfaces. And as I said, once we get into materials, we're going to show you this neat trick, which is Corona round edges. So this is basically going to be a great turning point for those of you that don't really want to over model your mesh and add unnecessary detail and, well, whatnot. So first of all, we've got this material, let's call it whatever. So it's just going to be material 26. And I'm going to make it a little bit metallic. So we're going to work with something that actually shows us those strong reflections. So this is one of the things I like to talk about at this stage of our webinars, because, okay, now we've got perfectly flat surfaces and they pretty much reflect like mirrors. And if you want to make them appear a little bit more lifelike, we need to add at least a little bit of glossiness to this metal, but it's still not enough. It's not going to be if the surface is a big planar metallic object. It's just going to look fake this way. You can pretty much tell that those cubes don't look good. So what can we do about it? First of all, we can add some noise to it. So the trick I like to add to my objects is noise with multimap. So Corona multimap is going to be a good supplement when it comes to bump. So let's just go for two materials and quickly add noise and noise. Yeah. So first of all, if we look at this right now, nothing happens. That's why I need to change this to mesh element. And let's take a look what happened now. Since this bump is not going to be present, we need to make sure that the size is not set to some weird values. So let's just go for 50 and still no visible effect. So maybe I'm just going to try to replug this in. Okay, so now you can see that this bump looks a little bit weird. It's one of the moments when you can actually create art by mistake, just by reflecting stuff out of your objects. So probably it's not the best way to do it, but one thing that is going to show pretty quickly is that this pattern is going to repeat itself. So if we add it in as our diffuse and take away the reflection, it's going to be more visible. You can see that we've got exactly the same pattern of this bump. So of course, if we go back and replug it in, we can try to add two multi-maps as I did right now, but let's set one to 150. So it's just going to create this rather subtle effect, but we still don't want it to be this strong. So let's go ahead and change the bump to 01. So it's going to look a little bit more metallic, because this is what your large surface metal would look like. I mean, like on a fridge and everything else. This one is going to be 160, and let's just change the phase so it's going to look totally different. Once we add both of those mats to our bump, we're going to be able to pretty much randomize how it's going to look like. So let's go for mesh element and try to randomize it a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is pretty much copy this object, let's say 5 times. Okay, 3 is enough. And now you can see that the surfaces look more lifelike, but the edges are still perfect. We hate that. So what can we actually do about it? We can either try to chamfer it, but with really complicated mesh, it's going to be complicated, time consuming, and of course it's going to be wasteful. That's why we've got this unique map, which is Corona Round Edges texture map. And it's going to work like this. If you add it to your bump, it's going to instantly fake the bump. I mean, fake the chamfer. So it's not going to exactly create any chamfers, but it's going to make your mesh appear like it's a little bit smoothed out. So you can see that even though we've got this hard edge around here, we still have a little bit of rounded edges. Now, if we try to combine the two of them and add this noise map and as our additional bump, we can pretty much make this look really believable. What I love about this map is this one element, and that is mesh that is going to be, let's say, intersecting is still going to be smoothened out. What does it mean? Let me just go ahead and make this a little bit weaker. I mean this reflection. So 1.5, and let's go ahead and make this almost white. So what I was trying to tell you is that we're going to get this edge rounded up. So you can see that we have this nice smoothing, and those elements are not just blatantly next to each other. Like right now, you can see the edge forming, and now we have this nice smooth transition between the two of those objects. So it's very, very cool to use it. We've got a lot of options: precise, fast, and a little bit more samples. So if you should not change the sample number, it's not really necessary. But there's also one thing I really like about this one map. So that is exactly the option to add exactly the same radius as you can with your maps, like, let's say, for example, ambient occlusion. So this time I'm going to go for 50, and let's add this radius. So what it created now is a little bit jagged edges. Of course, to see it perfectly, I'm going to make this ridiculously big, but we're going to be able to see those a bit jagged edges once we get a little bit closer. Okay, 15 centimeters is actually too much, and let's actually delete all the rest of those objects and focus just on one. So we want to see those jagged edges, so 1 centimeter, and let's look for nice reflections. So okay, we've got it here. So first of all, let's check how this map is going to appear on our object. Still too large as for noise, so let's go for 2. Now we've got quite a lot of noise around here. Let's go for fractal. No need for that. So now, since we added this as our radius map, you can see that this reflection is getting jagged. That means that you can use it on pipes and everything that it's going to be rusty to create this nice effect of rusty edges. And this is basically going to be a huge time saver for all of you that really want to add this fine detail. Of course, you don't need it. You cannot use it for your close-ups. For close-ups, you need to add the mesh. But once the object is a little bit behind or just not in the center of attention, you can simply use it with all of those bump options. I know this looks a little bit complicated, but honestly, all that was just the extra to make your renders super realistic, and you don't have to do it. But once you do, please try to save this whole thing, I mean this noise and everything else, as your maps, so you can just quickly plug them in without any hassle. So now you can basically see how this looks like, and it's, in my opinion, a little bit better than it was before. So I hope that it's actually helpful. Should we know that from the beginning? No, you should not, because then you would abuse this and use this a little bit in a little bit weird ways. And just adding the bump is not going to be a problem. Since we weren't able to talk about materials and how the bump works at this moment, we should not get into specific tricks like this. So you can see that now we've got this nice reflections forming thanks to those bumps, and this is something that is going to be very helpful. And in your case, Donald, I believe that it's going to be even more helpful, since you are rendering right now and you're doing great job. It's all about the tone mapping in your case, but your shots do look great. So use this technique, for example, here. It's going to be very helpful in this one case. But as for the light, we're just going to try to make it a little bit better. Guys, just 1 second, I'll be right. And I'm back. So I had to click one thing that wasn't really wasn't supposed to show here. So again, let's move on. Oh, by the way, you still have a lot of extra shots, so I'm a little bit lost in your folder. Guys, please try to add all of the newest shots here, so we can focus on it, because looking for the next inspiration and the second of your third interior is going to be a little bit tricky. Okay, so I guess we have no progress here yet, but we can go back to it later. Eric, I've seen that you posted something really interesting at your Instagram, so I would say that yes, you're doing really great progress. Okay, you've added background. Is it your shot? No, it's in the inspiration. It's easy to get a little bit, it's easy to get that mixed up with all of that, what you create, guys. So what do we have here? Looks way better. How did you do those dots? I mean those splats. Did you use mix? Did you add them to your textures as it goes, or did you just change the texture? Because wow, this looks really nice compared to your inspiration. This is actually showing. You may want to try to move the camera a little bit back, because in here we've got a little bit more space to look at, but still looks really nice. Just look at this mountain range. As I said, guys, you don't have to exactly reproduce the same thing that you would have in your previous shots, I mean your inspirations. You can add something that is going to be, let's say, more or less similar. So at this moment, I would say that I really like what you did with the lights, because they do look really realistic. We're still going to have to play around with the light just a little bit, but I'm already having a little bit trouble knowing which one is exactly your second interior, okay, which one exactly is your current shot, and which one is the inspiration, especially in the miniatures. So congratulations, Eric. You use Photoshop, great. So today you're going to get a little bit more videos about well, doing the close-ups and everything else. So more about it later on, because as I said, we're going to go back to our close-ups at some point. So this is the moment when you can start working on your backgrounds, and this is actually some hard modeling. This is some nice example of hard modeling. This was actually very time-consuming, and I know it. At this moment, you may want to start using proxies. There's a lot of items, and with 21 millions of vertices, I'm really happy that your PC is well, professional grade, because without it, it would be a real problem. So if you want, I can I can show you again how to use the proxies so you can understand the whole process a little bit better. But the polygon is crazy. Yes, it is. So now, if you want to use your proxies, this is actually something good as an example. All we need to do is remember all we need to do is just remember that if you have a few items in your shot and you let's say need to replicate them a few times, you may want to try to, of course, use proxies, especially for restaurants where objects will be replicated a lot of times. So now we've got this table, let's say, with this teapot, and of course let's scale it down. So we've got a lot of options when it comes to proxies. First of all, you can click on this Run Corona Proxy Exporter. It is really self-explanatory, but it's good to go through all of those options. First of all, we've got our output. So for that, it's best to either set your folder for proxies, which is going to be in your 3ds Max. So just set it there. So you could always go back, but you know, proxies may take a lot of space. So you also may use your main folder, your main project folder for your proxies for this specific project. So it's going to be better to copy them, or you can just create proxies right next to the Max from which you exported this object. We've got these 3 options. So first of all, we've got this collapse and export to single proxy file. This allows you to name your objects, and let's just copy this. And by naming the objects, I mean you can just name the proxy. So let's call it teapot prox, whatever. Here we've got a lot of options that are really unnecessary. So we don't need to cache this in RAM, because we're just trying to make sure that we don't use the RAM. We're just going to use it at the end of our work when we will be rendering. So we don't need to cache this. Replace source objects. Yes, this is very important. We don't want those teapots to stay. Remember that if you model something and you've got multiple turbo smooths and all those fancy modifiers on your objects, you're going to lose the ability to to further change them, and you're just going to have those objects collapsed. So that means that if you have all of those fancy modifiers on top of your objects, those are going to be collapsed, and this is going to look like this pretty much. Yes, this is your mesh now. And of course, let's delete this. If you're okay with that, or you've got a copy of this object somewhere on a side, or just in different file because you model something, okay? And now we can just export all of those objects as one file. Now this is exactly going to take 8 of your vertices, and now you can copy this as many times as you want, and these objects are not going to take as much space in your scene as they would in any other situation. So only by copying those teapots, as I'm doing it right now, they will get even my computer clogged at some point. But with proxies, you can see that now it actually works a little bit slower. So you can again see that it's trying to recalculate it, and it's getting a little bit harder to move in this viewport. I'm still getting quite good frame rate, so it's not that bad, but you can see that now we've got 15 million polygons. But if we delete all of them, and I mean all of them, now we've got only 800 polygons. So vertices actually. So yeah, this is how you can save a lot of your RAM, especially while you are still modeling and doing your materials. Remember that it's best to first apply materials to your objects, because if you try to export something as a proxy before you add materials, you will have to try to go to modify panel and reload this object as mesh. So duplicate to mesh. Now it's going to be set to one object, and again you will have to add the materials now. So before you export your objects, remember to always add the materials. This is super important, so work on just one set. Is there a way to view them in wireframe? Of course there is. Once you copied or instanced as many of those as you like, you can go to viewport display and go for full mesh. So those are going to be displayed in your viewport as full mesh. So you can precisely set them into their spot, or you can just go for point cloud and set how many points you want to see. Let's say 5%, 10%. You can then better approximate without the need of getting into this ridiculous amount of points. So this is going to be very helpful, and my favorite is just to use your wire box. It's just going to be the easiest, and of course it's super convenient to use. It's super fast to copy, it's super fast to move in your viewport. As you can see now, I can copy as many of them. Okay, not as many, don't go too crazy with them, but you can go a little bit further than you would in any other case with just mesh, because this already would be almost 30 millions of polygons, and right now it's actually just almost 5,000 vertices. So you get the point, right? So it's going to be very helpful for those of you that have a lot of repetitive objects, or those pesky trees that take up to 2 million of polygons. If you just added this one specific tree that everybody likes, but it has 2 million of vertices. So you may want to try to avoid that one. Great job. Okay, so Zara, I would really love to see your progress, because I know there is some, and if you can, please upload your progress to your folder. Okay, Francesca, nothing new. Clara and Miroslava. Okay, we've got something interesting going on here. First of all, wow. Second of all, congratulations. Okay, too exposed. I don't know how to fix it. Too dark? Okay. If it appears to be too exposed, just take a note. What do we have here? First of all, we've got some kind of building right behind your building. This is not really that important, but the important part is that right behind the window, we've got this balcony. So first of all, we've got a little bit more mesh around here that you should be modeling. Of course, we can create this wall, and then this black wall is going to block a lot of your light. So your floor is not going to be too exposed. Then when you actually add it in, you will notice that you'll be able to control this reflection a little bit more, and it's also going to be a little bit more interesting. Why? Because it's just going to have something to reflect. Right now, it's basically reflecting all the light that comes from the outside. That's why we have almost no detail around here. And as for those objects, I'm not sure if you should add them at this stage, at least so many. I would definitely try to avoid having such a plant on my coffee table. So you may want to tone this back a little bit, because once you add items that just don't belong there, like Wellingtons on your coffee table, people will start asking questions. Why is this so silly? And we just want to avoid that. That's why we try to avoid objects like that. By looking at two of those smeg fridges, I would probably add a little bit more glossiness to this object. It would look better. And okay, this is the cacti. So okay, I take that back. Basically, it is weird. So you added your own light, and those bars are basically very important for the shot. So you may want to work on them a little bit more. Try to put them a little bit lower. So we will be able to, of course, get a little bit different feel in this shot. It's not as crucial as it sounds, but now we've got a lot of open space around here, which we won't be able to add detail to. So you may want to move those bars a little bit lower, a little bit to the right. It's just going to be like that. But overall, the progress is impressive, and I'm really glad that you did so much. So is it the newest one, or okay, we've got even a cleaner one. So yeah, there's a lot of materials that we need to fix, but you know the drill. Ask as many questions as you can. Just look at this small detail here. We've got doors around here, and here we've got empty wall. Not exactly a big problem, but once we don't have any detail, you need to add something as a substitute. Because if we don't have anything in there, we're just going to play with really empty walls. And that's unacceptable in most of the cases. Why? Because it's going to look weird. People will start asking questions like, why there's nothing there? And we don't want that. Remember when I told you about this one specific object that is just going to look like a glowing sphere? Unless you have really good bloom and glare around it, it's the only way you can avoid it. But just look at it and try to not focus your attention on it for 5 seconds. Your eyes are just going back there. But in this case, we have actually we achieved something a little bit more toned. So you may want to play with it if you want to be that specific, but I wouldn't, because I like your shot a little bit more compared with this one object. But really great job. So let's go back to your first one. Now this is starting to look better and better. Should the shadows be stronger? Yes, they should. You actually added the door that I mentioned. You added also a mirror. That's a good idea. Okay, so the tuba is here, everything works. Now we're going to add the background. Remember that to add background like this, you either want to add the building itself, so you can just Google some kind of front shot of a building. If we add it in, just look for some textures, some objects that are pretty much available. You will see in your in the videos provided that it's actually easier than it sounds to look for objects like that. Then all you need to do is add it as a texture to a planar object and just put it behind your window. We're going to use a lot of trickery. We're going to use a little bit of trickery to make this appear a little bit better in Photoshop. So this is a really good texture for it. You can just use it and stretch it out to your needs. So look for something like that. There's a lot of shots that you can just download and use as your textures. Carpet needs more love. Yeah, definitely. So if you want to add a little bit love to your carpet, you definitely should go inside of the, okay, this is starting to sound bad. You should try to open it up using editable poly and try to add a little bit more detail to it. You can also add a displacement map if you wish, but in this case, you can also try to use different methods, and of course, to make it easier for you, from time to time you can try to visit the Corona materials. So those are not really that bad, not really that great. People use them to save a little bit of time, but as I said, most of them will have some kind of problems. And first of all, let's try to render this out quickly. So let's start our interactive render to make this appear a little bit better. So of course now it looks like, you know what, and we will need to set the real world map coordinates. I know that I told you not to use it, and I stand by my word, because most of the time it's just going to produce errors and problems with texturing. But once you go to your fabrics in this material library, we've got really good textures that you can use for your carpets or rugs. So if we just try to drag and drop those, you can see that yes, it looks bad, but it looks bad because this is a small scale object. So let's make it 3 meters by 4 meters, and this is something that you would probably expect out of a big carpet. Remember, displacement is going to be recalculated only for your current shot. This is to save a little bit of your RAM, so you can see that the initial shot we started with, it has this displacement, but the rest of it doesn't. So you need to restart your render each time you want to recalculate the displacement. Now you'll see that we won't have it as much as detailed on those edges. But as I was saying, this is going to allow you to add this rather slowly rendering, but quite decently looking textures. This is one of those that I really think that work well, especially for those of you that have really low carpets. Or you can use a soft rug or any of those carpets that we have here. So those also look quite okay. So those are huge time savers. You also have a little bit of fabrics here. So don't abuse them. Those are not going to be perfect. It's not like they just add it for free. So let's not expect too much from them. And some of the materials are just ridiculously overcomplicated for some reason, but some of them also look good. So this is a good cheat sheet for some of you, especially this low carpet gray is something that I actually use because it's actually good. So you may want to do it especially for your floors in, let's say, your offices or something like that. So this is going to look good in your shots, but of course it has a downside. So you cannot freely move your camera. You can see the difference right around here. So that's one of it. But also it's not going to look that great. Also, okay, it is going to look good, but it's going to take quite a while to actually render it. It's not optimized correctly. But you can see that just by adding a little bit of something to our carpet, we can basically use it again. So if you want to add this fine detail like those lines you shown there, we can either try to add the turbo smooth and add a little bit of detail. Now editable poly, and let's select one of those lines, deselect part of it, and just don't worry about it. Just try to either extrude it and try to make this appear like that. So don't worry about it, you can do it like that. Then you just add turbo smooth on top of it, so it's going to be a little bit better. Don't worry about the topology, it's just the carpet. Don't go crazy with it, and once you have this small detail, it's going to look a little bit better. As you can see now, it actually does look more realistic because we have some kind of action going on here. So this is what you can use for your shots. Okay, so sorry for this. This is one of those things that I didn't want to show you. So yeah, stupid stuff that people send me. Anyway, sorry for this. Let's continue talking about our homework. So as for the rest of this, this is going to be even better with a lot of contrast. Right now your room is a little bit overexposed because we don't have this wall around here that would basically stop some of the light from pouring in from the right side. You need to check this out. You can see that there's more shadow forming around here. That means that not all the light comes the same way inside, but you don't necessarily have to pay as much attention to it. But it's still going to be something worth mentioning. So it's impossible to recreate exactly the same light in shots like this, but you know, the more we look at your shots, the more information we can get out of it. So really great job, congratulations, and let's continue. So Kenna, what do we have here? Nothing new. I hope that you're well. Please contact me when you're online. Okay. Did we? Okay, no. Okay. Now Mario. Finishing materials. That actually sounds really promising. Okay, great job. Your floor needs a little bit more variety. Right now, you can clearly see that it's basically, it doesn't have this variety in reflection glossiness. But, well, looking at this, it actually looks good. Bit too strong in this light department. We have something called anti-aliasing. You can see those edges a little bit too strongly, so it's probably going to need a little bit longer rendering time, but wow, it looks good. Congratulations. So I like this LED light in the back, so good job around here. Great job. Now let's see your day shot. Again, really great job with focus on your HDRI. Now, saturation is desaturated. I mean, the HDRI is desaturated just a little bit, and it actually shows that it's better. Still, I would work a little bit more on this floor because the planks appear to be quite stretched. They appear to be at least 2 meters long, so maybe this will help a little bit because they look a little bit overscaled, but still looking really great. This is basically almost finished. There's a little bit of Photoshop awaiting you, and we're done. We're almost done. This comparing this to your inspiration, it's here. This is basically, we're getting there. Of course, we should probably look for a little bit better chair, because right now the model you have is not exactly ideal. I'm not sure where did you get it, but the back doesn't have the same curvature. That's why we're getting a little bit different reflections. So you can go to vitra.com and try to look for the product. It's just going to have this really nice models that you can download, high quality CAD data that you can just try to download. Remember guys, almost all good, or at least large companies, are going to have some kind of resources that you can use to your needs, and usually those aren't really that bad. So you can see that the mesh is decent. It's probably going to require you a lot of mapping, but considering that this is a really easy model, this is just 4 cylinders to map, so you can do it. And congratulations, this is really good. This is really good. From all of that, what I can see, if you really want to add this light around here, we can just try to add extra lights to your scene with direct visibility to make them appear like that. Of course, desaturating your HDRI a little bit further is going to be helpful, so it's going to wash out those walls a little bit more. And we need a little bit extra light. You can see that here we have some kind of light source visible, so maybe you need a little bit larger window a little around here. Do you still have your inspiration main shot? Okay, this is not inspiration. This is what I was talking about. At some point, those are getting a little bit harder to distinguish from one another. Okay, great job. Wow. Okay, remember guys, he started from total beginner level with no knowledge of 3ds Max. So really great job. This is something I need to applaud. Okay, this is a little bit of cheating, adding your inspiration as the background, but still it's smart. So I would say it's actually working. So you trace this image so well that it actually applies to it. So as for the models, nothing to say here other than this edge looks weird. It actually shows that it's 3D, so you may want to change this model. It doesn't look that good, but the background thing, really good idea. So one thing that you need to remember is that we will add the background, so we can avoid situation like this. There's nothing reflecting, and we have this reflection. So in today's videos, you're going to learn a little bit more about this process, and of course, we could play a little bit more with the width of those planks. And objects like this are widely available online, so you can either try to look for something like that. So let's go for I'm just going to try to look for air conditioner. And okay, if you have air conditioner like that, you can easily find 1 or 2 textures of upfront shots, and those are just look for something like this and try to look further for those upfront shots. Once you have it, try to add it on a box as a texture and add a little bit more. So this whole process is ridiculously easy, and you don't need the mesh to add a detail like that. But unfortunately, I cannot really find any good texture for now, for some reason. Okay, so air conditioner front doesn't really help me, but the main premise looks like this. You just save this as your texture and you add it on the box. you make the corners a little bit rounded, and you put it on your ceiling. Then if it doesn't look good, you can try to look for a model or just add bump to it, a little bit of reflection, and since it's going to be in the background, it's going to look really good, and you don't have to waste time on modeling something so specific. And it's just going to be really that easy. So one of you guys asked me if we're going to create our own textures. Yes, but first we need to have a texture to create. Next thing that you may have noticed is that we've got this reflection. It's actually very beautiful reflection. It adds a lot to your shot, and that's why you should add some kind of fake light around here if you don't want to. Just try to create a big object which is going to be, let's say, a plane, and try to see what how your reflection, the reflection of this object is calculated. It's basically going to be probably somewhere around here to place. And once you do it, you can just substitute it with two small lights to play a little bit more and get the proper reflection to basically get the same beautiful effects. Once you do it, remember to add a little bit of bump, and that's why we have this curvature around here. It's not perfectly flat, so that's why we have this effect. Your concrete is a little bit more reflective than the one in your inspiration, so you again may want to add a little bit more glossiness. It looks good, but try to go a little bit lower with your glossiness value as a number wise. And again, we've got this floor, right? So you want to probably reproduce this effect. First of all, using floor generator, you're able to move your tiles to your liking. So you may want to do it just to be able to combine those two different types of floors. And how to combine them? Well, there's nothing easier. All you need to do is create your first object. So let's just do that. Let's say that you are already happy with your floor. Now you can detach this and pretty much add the floor generator. So let's add a floor generator to this object. Now let's say that those are really nice tiles that you created. So let's change the direction to 90 and let's put in 100 by 100 with no offset. Okay, so now you may want to play a little bit more with the offset around here, so to give your spin a little bit more power, hold left control, and of course you'll be able to move those a little bit faster. Once you have it, you can pretty much copy your modifier and paste it on this object. So it's going to just perfectly aligned since this was created from the same object, and now you can pretty much read it. Okay, so this wasn't exactly as planned, and you may want to move it a little bit further because it doesn't look that good. So if we paste this as instance, so paste as instance, and of course delete paste as instanced, we're going to still have a little bit further control over this planks. So now let's just move those tiles, planks and tiles, sorry for this. So 27, 28, and just add the increments. So let's go for 2 and let's go for 1. Okay, now it works perfectly, and this is how you can create multiple types of floor, and it's going to be updated no matter what. So once you change one of them, the second one is going to update as well, so it's just going to be easier to control since those tiles are supposed to be the same size. And there's one thing that I like to do, and this is the moment I will introduce you to one of the maps that I use and nobody else does for some weird reason. So by 50, and now notice that I made this change this extrude to 1 centimeter as it was instructed in your floor generator video, but of course it's all going to depend on your own liking. So again, if we have some kind of material, so let's say we've got this beautiful materials of our tiles, okay, it's actually going to work pretty nicely. What you can do to add those grunts and everything else. So we want to add a little bit of detail. First of all, what you can do to add detail in between those tiles is add a little bit of gap. So if you do it, now we have this gap and it actually looks a little bit bad. So again, we create this planar object and put it a little bit closer to the top of our tiles, just as close as possible. So let's do it. And we're here. Now you can fill it in with any kind of color. So let's just copy this. This is usually going to be very, very matte. So let's go for 45 and make it a little bit darker so it stands out. And this is one of the options you can use to your advantage, because it's just going to look better with this detail. It's going to grab a little bit of that light, but why stop here? You can still go a little bit further by actually going a little bit further. Kids, don't try this at home. This is the moment when you can add this multiple layers of your bumps to make your tiles look a little bit better. But if you use corona round edges and move it a little bit to your tiles, not all tiles are going to have round edges, of course not. So don't be ridiculous when you'll be doing it. But once you add this to both of those materials, you can see that now we've got a little bit of this rounding. So let's go for 2 millimeters, and of course, let's see what's the difference. Those are going to form those small details that are going to look better on your render overall. So in the end, just adding a little bit of detail to your tiles allowed us to basically just look at this. No detail, now a little bit of round edges, a lot of detail, right? So this is very helpful. Of course, don't be ridiculous, don't go for too high of a value. It's just 1 millimeter maximum for tiles, so you have this really subtle effect. And of course, the bumps, as I said, as noise. So remember, when you add this as additional bump, you may want to change the additional bump power to, let's say, something like 1.5. So it's really going to be small and really subtle. Then the size of this thing in the end, we're just going to change this to be subtle again. So don't be ridiculous when it comes to those values. We don't want your tiles to look like this unless those are that tiles. But let's go for something like 150. So it's going to create this pond-like effect. And additional bump, again, we're just going to go for 1 point. And now we have this nice wavy effect. With multi-map, it's going to be even better because it's going to be randomized. And this is pretty much how you can do it. This is the easiest way. There are other methods that require a little bit extra steps. But as I said, we're always going for most efficient way. Congratulations, this is almost finished. Really love it. The same principle applies around here. Just create a sphere, squash it, add a texture, and it's going to look really good. You don't need to overthink it. If you want to add a detail like that, don't overthink it. Just create a circle, add it as a detail around here. This is just a white color and it's going to look better in the end than just this opening. So add those details as you go, and it's going to look better and better, because at this moment we're going to play a little bit more with the details. And yes, congratulations, you really are doing great. So I'm always checking if you haven't started your third image already, because you're really doing great. As for somebody who started with zero knowledge of 3ds Max, congratulations, really great job. So it looks like we're again in for a little bit longer webinar. So nothing new here, and we have nothing new here. So if you could please upload your progress, unless it's here, but it's not. So Okay, what is last modified? I guess nothing new here, right? Great. I mean, not great. It's actually bad. But let's see this. Okay, guys, tell me, what do you think? What is your opinion, and what are we going to change around here? Because for me, this is almost finished. We're just getting there. This is just this far from finished. So first of all, we're going to play a little bit more with the reflection on your chair just to make it more realistic. And honestly, right now I'm just being picky because this is really something amazing. This would already pass with your clients. Believe me, this is just read the chat. This is basically done. We're still going to play a little bit more with those objects around here, probably change the color, and of course fix this lamp because it's just the glossiness thing. And of course, we're going to add a little bit of translucency. We're going to try to turn off those lights, but wow. Congratulations, like a big round of applause, because really great job. Make this a little bit darker, a little bit desaturated, and it's going to be almost the same color correction. Still, we're going to play a little bit more in Photoshop with your shot, but you know, guys, this is basically almost finished. Your floor still needs a better texture. Rotate it, play around with it, do the tone mapping, so it's going to change a little bit the tone of your overall scene. Guys, this is finished almost. So congratulations, a really beautiful job. Did you already start your second interior? I hope so, because you're already done and you don't have any background. So you'll see how fast you'll be able to model your next one. Just do it as soon as possible. Demetra, let's see what we have in your folder. Okay, I guess then nothing is new around here, right? Not yet. So we need some progress. Demetra, when you are online, let's work on it. Spam me, ask questions, and of course, Tony is also there to help you. Didn't work this week, as I told you. Yes, but I'm still trying to push you and shame you into work to make sure that you produce something amazing, because I have high hopes for all of you. So you're not an exception. So what do we have here? I know that there is super data. I'm working on that. Well, I wouldn't call it that way. I would say that it's just not finished, but it looks good. So if you could please add a little bit more of your so this is actually a shadow, not exactly dirt. So you may want to go easy on it, because once we get into Photoshop and everything else, it's not going to be necessary to add it. You may add it as a subtle effect, like 5%, but don't go overboard. And remember, it would be really helpful if you added your textures, I mean your inspirations, right next to your renders, so we can just point out everything. But this dirt around here, this actually works really nice. I love the glossiness you added here, a little bit of bumpy, I guess. Really good job. Everything looks on point. Now, honestly, your shot is basically ready. So you could basically just put it in Photoshop and fix all of that with LUTs, a little bit of tone mapping. This is finished. But if you want to go one step further, we can do that. But honestly, I would just take it into Photoshop and start working on it there, because this is basically finished in my eyes. We just need a little bit of post-production. So let's not get too deep into it, but honestly, this is something really amazing. So By the way, guys, this is something I wanted to also show you is that remember the first grade color mixing when you were playing around with paint and you probably tried to look around and, I don't know, create new colors. So the thing is that when you have a really strong yellowish light coming from your inside and really strong bluish light coming from the outside, at some point those lights are going to mix and produce this greenish color. It may look a little bit more grayish in some occasions, but it's still going to look more or less like that. That's why desaturating your HDRI to some extent is going to be very important. But of course, it's not the most important part of this whole process, but you know, the basic color mixing is still applies in our shots. So from this moment, we've got materials raw and just taking that to Photoshop and just going ahead with this contrast, a little bit of clarity, you can see that we're getting all this detail. Of course, we're going to we're not going to try to go inside of those bluish greenish tints because those aren't really that realistic. But once we get into stronger contrast, you're going to see that this is actually too strong. So you may want to skip that. So vignetting is going to be one of those elements that you need to add because right now your shot is lacking it a little bit. And of course, once we have a lot of our tiles and you want to add a little bit more detail, you can always add it as an extra in your Photoshop. But of course, this is going to take a little bit longer than just 2 clicks. So let's not do it yet. But just by looking at this shot, I would say that this is basically almost finished. So you should start working on your second shot. And now we're just going to have a little bit of fun with the tiles and multi-map. Everything that you've done around here, amazing job. So just carry on, continue, and just try to experiment a little bit more with LUTs because your model is just perfect. There's nothing to add here, really. We just need to add this finer detail that comes from the walls and everything else. So if you want to add this kind of dirt, you can use the layered map or mix map, whatever. Everything is going to work fine. And as for the tiles, you already know how to do it. Just prepare 5 or 6 dirt maps and allow them to appear randomly on some of the tiles. So creating these tiles doesn't require you to create a hexagon. You can basically take any kind of dirt map and just add it in. Now, if you want, you can play a little bit more with the fabrics, but it's not necessary. Please remind me, did you download those chairs or model them? Because I'm not sure if I should be very proud of you or just very, very proud of you. Really great job overall. If you want to make this a little bit more puffy, you can use push modifier. Just try it out. And of course, you know, the basic tone mapping is going to be your best friend. Probably one thing that you also can do is take your wood material and try to color correct it using 3ds Max, Corona color correct. So in Photoshop, it's not going to allow you that much flexibility, but once you get into it, you can see that it's basically going to be like that. When you go inside of your 3ds Max, you just need to play a little bit more with the colors so they will look better once you get there. But haven't modeled them. Don't be proud of me, haven't modeled them. But the shot looks really great, so that's what I'm proud of. Because you listen, you watch the videos, you basically do really great job. And I really love this reflection around here. It really does look good, and it's going to look even better. By the way, you may want to add some reflection to your some more reflection to the wood material itself, so it's going to look a little bit more glossy. But seriously, congratulations. Just comparing it to this one, you know, it does look good. It does look good. You even added this nice detail on the top. This is amazing. So congratulations. And as for your second shot, your second interior, I believe that you created a little bit more already. So remember to upload daily. You should, guys, please upload your progress to our main chat. Just post it. It's really nice to see how everybody works together. There's a lot of you working on some beautiful shots, and just look at this. You would probably like to see everything that's happening here. Fire, yes, we're going to add that. So as for fire, you can visit our YouTube. There's a method that you can use to create fire using cylinders and basic maps. There's a lot of options that you can also visit online, like Sketchfab. I know that I already mentioned that, but if we go for fire downloadable, there's a big chance that you will download something that is going to be actually usable in terms of the fireplaces and everything else. Of course, it's not 100% guaranteed that you will find it here, but there's still a lot of interesting models to download and check out how they are made. And of course, props that you may want to use for some reason in your interiors. Like this snail. Yes, you may want to use it. Yes, let's continue. So that'll be one of the things. Of course, a little bit further desaturation on this on those planks. And I'm really not sure about the texture itself. It looks a little bit cut, like there's a lot of planks inside of it. So you may want to also show it from a little bit of zoom, because right now I'm not sure if the mapping is exactly correct. So we may want to check it out. And as for your shot color-wise, everything looks good, but still need a little bit more work. We're going to play a little bit more with the increments of your shot, but this is starting to look exactly as your inspiration. So congratulations again, you really done great job. In your shot, I noticed that the light is not exactly coming from the left side, but it's coming. You can see that there's some fake lamp around here. You can see that this shadow is totally different because it doesn't come from this any of those windows. It's just impossible. This is some kind of flashlight. It's probably somewhere around here. So you may want to go inside it. So what do we have here? The material itself looks surprisingly good, but also it has 45 degrees of rotation, so you need to change this. Was it also updated? I'm not sure, because this is screenshot 28, so I'm not sure about that. Let's move on to your second interior that you already started, and you're doing amazing progress. So how long did it take you to create this model? Was it hard? Did you waste a lot of time? Would you spend a lot of time? Sorry, not waste. This is not time wasted. Did you spend a lot of time on it? And what was the hardest element of 2-point perspective? A few hours. I would actually count on a little bit less than that. Not too bad. Yeah, it was faster than the first time, the second time, the third time. You just need to get more experienced. You need to experiment a little bit, and you're going to be better and better. It's somewhat like drawing. Once you get into it, you're going to notice that it's going to get better and better. Okay, so as for this shot, we already talked about this with Shafiq. So for those of you guys, again, desaturating your background is very helpful. Adding, paying attention to your inspiration extra lights is very important as well. You can see that there's a little bit of extra light coming from the right side. So we have this reflection. Oh my God, this is amazing. interior 1. So let's check it out. So where is it? Where is it exactly? I don't see it. Okay, so which one is it? Last modified. So this would be your materials, right? Glass bulbs. So let's go ahead and see your inspiration. Update 1. Update glass, update. Okay, so let's start from this one. Okay, which one is okay, this is your shot exactly. So looking at it, I would say that you're on really making great progress. First of all, we need to probably play a little bit more with the light itself, because we need a bit more exposure. So let's just pump it up and move the HDRI so that it allows a little bit more light. Again, we have strong light coming from this side, so you need to position your light accordingly. As for those objects on the ceiling, they look great. Everything looks fine, so nothing to add really. But thanks for not populating, thanks to the fact that you didn't populate this was rendering faster. But still, we need to color correct those planks, and allow a little bit more light inside of your shot. Right now, everything looks okay, but I still need to see a little bit more of your scene. So if you want, we can try to edit desks right after our webinar, so we can basically work on it a little bit more. The light of LED is very strong. I tried to lower it. Yes, but it's just to this is not the main light in your scene. And as for the light bulb, you probably don't need this IOR. You may want to also make them thin, but it doesn't really matter that much. Reflection in your fabrics is not needed, so everything looks really fine in here. Again, yes, this definitely needs a little bit more color correction. So try to use Corona Color Correct to add a little bit more color to your planks, play with them a little bit more, add the tone, change the hue. It's just up to you. Dark metal, don't go for values of 0 in your diffuse, because it means that all of your light is not going to bounce off your objects. And now I'm going to quickly show you what's the difference between those two states. So we've got those two objects. They really represent pretty good solid objects. So let's take Corona material and let's just add it in to both of them. So now if I add another Corona Corona material, we can just compare them. So first of all, we're going to go for diffuse of 1. This is how it looks like. You can still see some edges. You know what? I'm going to basically make sure that this one is getting it. Oh, actually no. So this is basically diffuse black level 1. If you now add a little bit of reflection and glossiness, it's going to look more or less okay, but you still want to make sure that it's not reflecting 100%, right? So we can lower this a little bit, so it's going to look more what we would expect like. But now if I add this second material without any reflection, and we're just going to set the diffuse to 0, you cannot really see it. Why? Because it doesn't bounce any light back. But once we add just a hint of black color, so it's just 1, you can see it again, because now it's taking part in our calculations. So this is very important for us, because we need this to be at least a little bit at least a little bit we need at least a little bit of diffuse color in there, so it's going to look better. So this is what you are aiming at when doing materials like that. So not exactly this, of course, because your model requires a little bit different settings, but this is what you should be aiming at. 0 is not going to have that much effect in this case, and still we need to make sure that we have at least a little bit of this glossiness. Later on we will add some contrast, so the blacks are going to appear really rich, and the Photoshop is going to help us get to those blacks. But of course we cannot make those objects too reflective, because we just don't want it, and some of the paint is just not going to require that. But you basically understand, we cannot go for diffuse level 0 in this case. So okay, let's continue. Great job. We can talk about your materials a little bit later, just after our webinar. So now, Shafiq, let's go back to your progress. So of course, the key element in shots like this is to make sure that all of your colors work together. Just looking at this sofa, you need to take a note that this brown color, or orange if you will, is going to be suitable. I mean, it's going to fit this color, it's going to fit this color, and that color. That's exactly what we were talking about when we were pointing out that your color composition needs to be on point. So this green works fine with this green and with this green. So you don't, you cannot allow colors to stand out. Again, they can just focus on those books and the carpet. This is not really random, so somebody really designed this shot. That's why you need to pay attention to this kind of smaller detail. Again, white object, white object. If you have big white object, why not add small white object? Again, big white object, small white object. That's how we can create those two counterbalances. Big gray object, small gray object. This is going to help you work with your composition. This is something that I need to point out, that we've got thick and thin object, big black object, small black object. This is very important, and we need to make sure that our composition is going to be on point, so the colors need to be corrected in your case. Okay, so what do we have here? Is this, no, it's not your shot yet. Okay, and this is getting strongly and suspiciously weird. I mean, it's just that it's hard to tell which one is which, so let's compare it this way. First of all, now you're done with this shot. I mean, you don't need to any further work on it. You've got beautiful reflection, but you still need some kind of reflection, reflecting object behind your scene. So you're getting, yeah, I know. So you're getting this, you're going to get this blackish reflection. So just create some grayish object behind the camera, so it's going to add this reflection. You can see that the reflection ends around here. You have almost the same effect, but with white wall behind, so that's why we don't have the same gradient. I really love this reflection. This is some nice work, and of course by adding a little bit of randomization, as I suggested to you, this looks really realistic. So great job, seriously. Now you can play a little bit more with noise as a modifier on it to add just a little bit of jiggly parts, but this is not really that important at this moment because you really done a great job. Again, we just need to add a little bit extra detail on around here with those black elements, but seriously, this looks great. Definitely desaturate this object, make it a little bit darker because it looks a little bit too like the cosmic green. So that will be my suggestion, and of course we're going to make this a little bit richer in Photoshop, because you know this is Photoshop. We cannot really expect to get 100% of the same effect, but wow, this is something. So let's now compare your shot. Again, guys, what do you think? Because this is almost indistinguishable. Wow, that's one thing. Wow, again, that's the second. And yeah, congratulations. I'm not sure what else can we add here other than just a little bit of Photoshop to play with the floor. I really like this texture. Both of your images are basically done. Now all you need to do is play around with Photoshop just a little bit to get those special effects, but you're finished. Start working on your third interior or something, because man, you did good job. This is really great job. You're done. Both of your interiors are done. So yes, I cannot really add anything else. You even added this small effect that wasn't really here, or was it? But this is looking great. I like the other shots a bit more. Other shots. So you're telling me that you even rendered something else? Is this your shot? Wow, nice work. Okay, we need background. This is a big tell when it comes to shots like this, but wow, come on, this is something. So today I was about to tell you a little bit about your interiors and how to do close-ups with colors, but I guess you already understand how it works. So yeah, this is wow, and wow indeed. So yes, congratulations. Guys, remember what I told you? Add something interesting, a little bit of a thin light behind your scene. So this is basically nailing it. I mean, we've got this bokeh effect, we've got a little bit of interesting light, interesting lamp that creates a little bit of something. The thing that I may try to tell you to try to work on a little bit more is this glass, because it looks frosted but not frosted at the same time. But wow, this is some amazing shot. How long did you render it? I mean, wow, that's really important to tell that. Wow. So congratulations. So this was your shot. This wasn't the inspiration. I thought that this was the inspiration. Honestly, I did. Honestly, I did think that this is one of the inspirations. Congratulations. And great job. As somebody who started with some knowledge in 3D, I would say that this is a step up in your 3D game. Wow. How do you render at that quality? All you need to do is to render at that quality is just simply wait a little bit longer. I'm actually really glad that you did it. This is something amazing. I really like it. I really like it. This is cool. You really picked great models. Everything looks fine. Congratulations. Nothing to add. Start working on another one, because today I wanted to ask you to start looking for your exterior shot. Okay, you already started working on your third interior. No, you didn't, but you can. So any further questions? I would say that we can try to push a little bit more with the shadows in Photoshop, because this is definitely not realistic effect. But tell me what else would you like to change, and I'm going to tell you not to do it, because this is just something that doesn't require that. Did you Photoshop it already? Because I'm not sure about that, just asking, but seriously, this is really great. Congratulations. The best part is that when I opened this, I honestly thought that I clicked on your inspiration and I wanted just to quickly get to your shots. Lightroom, okay, this actually explains quite a bit of it, but okay, this close-up is going to be one of my favorites. This effect is really amazing. Congratulations. Okay, to be a little bit, to find something that is wrong. You can see the edges here, so maybe a little bit more turbo smooth is going to be on point here, but seriously, it's just me trying to find something to point out, because I'm just speechless. Honestly, this is great. So at this point, it's just balancing out some of the colors if you want to do it, but it's just not necessary. One thing that was the key element of this composition was that we only had 3 strong colors. So this floor, this blackish areas, and a supplement of greens. And in your case, we've got green, pink, pink, green, and that changes the composition a little bit. So that's why the read is a little bit different. And of course, we have a little bit different colors. You can see that somebody really put in a lot of work to make sure that the closer we get to this point, the closer those 2 colors are. So somebody over photoshopped this. And in your case, we have a little bit tone discrepancy. So that would be the only element I would be really picky on. But seriously, this is done. Congratulations. Start working on your next interior and play around with your currently done one, because seriously, congratulations. This is something I'm really happy to see. Okay. Vey, did you add something new? Did you had a little bit more time to work on your shot? Okay, so contact me and we're going to play a little bit more on this with this. So heating, let's see your progress. So again, something amazing. We're just going to need a little bit of toning down the colors here and there, but this is looking great. Wow, congratulations, this is cool. So you fixed the plant and it actually looks great. Try to match those 2 colors a little bit more. I mean, right now the hue is a little bit different, so it shows. Of course, we need to add more turbo smooth iterations or just smoothness to this table alone. And in the end, try to look for some kind of texture for the background. The images, just add your own photos from Facebook if you want, if you like. Okay, this mapping needs to be fixed. This actually shows, and you need to fix this. So you can either grab one of the planks and just copy it 2 times, or just try to align this, but yeah, this definitely requires a little bit more work. I like it. I really like it. This again needs turbo smooth, so it's going to look better. And try to use one of the carpets from the Corona library, because it's going to be very, very well, helpful. And again, we've got this problem around here, so you may also want to change that. But yeah, great job. Theo Fan Club. Okay guys, so we're actually getting to that point where you all like each other. That's really amazing. Okay, so as for this one shot, of course, this is going to also require a little bit more work, because I can see that the texture is tiling. But seriously, looks good, looks good. Let's play around with all of those colors a little bit more, but I like what you did with the shadows at this point. So if we take your shot into Photoshop, we can actually do that and play a little bit with it. It's just going to allow us to get to the point where it's going to look better, but it's not going to yet be perfect. But seriously, I'm really proud of you guys. This is something I really love to see. So of course, now we can play a little bit more with the exposure, so it's going to be brighter. We can change the hue saturation of this object later, but what I like to do is play a little bit more with saturations of my green when I have situation like that. So luminance is also going to be helpful, so we're getting richer colors, and of course try to get a little bit more of that yellow color out of it. So again, you don't need a strong saturation, but you need to make this a little bit more lifelike. So let's play around with it a little bit more. And now this is going to be a really a game changer. You can change the hue of your greens and every other color to your liking. So it's basically what I love to do in Photoshop, because this allows me to get exactly to the point I want to get. So this is something I would strongly suggest to you. And now we already know that you need some kind of background to add in your shot. So you can either go with the Andrea's picture, so you can just do it like that and try to add it, or if you don't want to do it like that, you can basically try to work a little bit more with some kind of texture. It's just going to require you to create any kind of planar object and just place your texture on it. Use Shutterstock or just Google to find some good maps that you can add at the background, same as the picture and the frames, because your image is looking really great. It's just going to look even better if we use a little bit of burn here and there, like those guys from the internet do. So we can get to those colors at some point just by clicking here and there. I know I'm overdoing it at this moment, but I'm just showing you that those guys that work on this kind of images, they strongly over Photoshop them to get the results they get. Now, when I added this light, I noticed that your couch is probably flying a little bit. So put it on the ground because it's a few centimeters above the ground, and this is not going to actually fly with us. Later on, of course, we go for clarity just a little bit, don't overdo it, but basically you see that we're getting there and you're basically done. Again, really done job. You just need to add just a little bit of that detail, just that one next push, and you're there. So as for the greens, as I said, we need to make sure that those are going to look pretty similar. So you can add the adjustment layer, hue saturation, and try to work not on the master level, but on the greens. So only the green color is going to be affected in this case. So we can try to move those sliders a little bit to match those colors. And tell me, does it look better this way? I mean, it's a subtle thing, but you can see that those two tones now speak to each other. And we've got this composition thing that I was talking about, big green object, small green object. So this is going to communicate a little bit better. So try to do it this way, and congratulations, you basically created your first interior. So as for somebody who started with absolutely no knowledge of 3ds Max, really proud of you. Really great job. You put in those hours and this really shows. We need just a little bit more, just those one or two pushes, and we're there. So again, it was a little bit longer talk, so sorry for that, guys, but those of you that still are around, please accept my apologies for taking so long, but there's just so many amazing images to look at. So as for your second interior, we can actually fix the camera right now, and those moldings, they look overscaled. Once you add a little bit more, they will look better, but as I said, those are going to be problematic. We can fix this light, but remember, this is heavily over lit. This has a lot of fake lights. Okay, this looks cool. Go to Sketchfab to find a model like this. I mean, any sculpture will do. Okay, Okay, so what do we have here? You have basically created a lot of good models. So again, any questions so far? What else was I supposed to show you today? The mapping of cylindrical objects, right? When they have some kind of curvature. So before you create any kind of object like that, you may want to consider using just a line to can't match the texture. I was trying to make the sofa, but I can't match this texture. In this case, we will be using 3-planar map, and since you already know how it works, I'm just going to tell you that you should use it. Okay, the fire. I promise you on the next webinar, Eric, I'm going to show you this thing. So I'm just trying to create something for you that is going to be bulletproof, but the files we're going to work with is the format that is, wait a sec. So from not long ago, Corona is able to use files that are called pretty much similar to FBX, which you know the FBX files are for 3D models, but VBX are for transporting and pretty much moving your simulations from one point to another. And on our next webinar, I'm going to finally show you how to use Lightmix and some of the volumetrics. So I'm also going to share with you 1 or 2 files with my fire done with simulation method, so you'll be able to add this fire from now on, and it's going to basically be usable and pretty much viewable from any angle you like. I'm going to also show you how to set this material quickly, so it's just going to be really easy and pretty much usable whenever and however you like it. But still, it's going to be a fireplace fire, not really something to burn your house. So you may want to reconsider placing it in the right place. As I was saying, we're going to add a little bit of mapping to these objects. So before you consider creating objects like this, and if it's just a cylinder, you may want to try to create a map that is going to be good for you to with a sec checker, so we can basically add it in. Let's add a little bit more size, so again 10 by 10, so we can see this on our object itself. And now, as you can see, we have no mapping at all on this object, but we've got this option to generate mapping coordinates, and this is going to be very helpful when working with objects like this. So this is one of the ways you can create mapping for your objects with curvature when working with splines. But of course, you're not going to work with splines all the time, and sometimes you will already have some twisted, weird objects that you just don't know how to coordinate. So first of all, it's just going to require proper textures. So if we change the amount of tiling when it comes to, of course, spins, you can now see that this is basically getting a little bit better. What I mean by that is that by making this tiling fit our object, we're able to get to the point where we're getting not the rectangles, but we're getting squares. So squares are going to be indicator that your mapping is now your tiling, I mean the texture tiling, is correct. So we don't have any extra stretching, but this is one of the ways how to do it. The fastest way, of course, is to follow this way because it's going to allow you to do it all the just like that as an instance. Just generate mapping coordinates. You can also create real-world map sites, but more about it later. No, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm lying. This is actually something that I don't like to use, mostly because it's a little bit preposterous. So again, if we have object that we don't know how to map and it's already curved and it's just going to be problematic from now on, and you really need to do it. You just need to do it. You may want to resolve to 3-planar map in that case. So let's try to add this chamfer just so we can see some of those curvatures. Okay, so just using the UVW map and using the box is not going to cut it because we're going to have some kind of intersecting textures. And just by setting this to 50 by 50 by 50 and playing around with this texture with the proper coordinates, so let's just go for 50 by 50 again, you will see that we have a little bit of problems and you want to avoid them, right? So that's why we're going to use 3-planar map instead. Remember, with objects that require a lot of detail when it comes to let's say mapping, we will have to resolve to our UVW unwrap. But why should you use Corona 3-planar map? This is the reason. It tries to blend all of your maps so that we have no transition problem. By the way, guys, we're finishing our interiors, so remember that you still have time until Monday to finish your interiors. That's why if you have finished your interior already, make sure that you start working with your next shot. We want you to produce as many shots as possible because, well, why not? And we're going to help you out with each and every shot. So take on new challenges, add some new stuff. So if we go ahead and add Corona bitmap, Corona bitmap, and we're going to just try to add some kind of map that is going to be as always, the one that I really love when it comes to pipes and everything else. So let's just open it up. Okay, so we add this map, and now you can basically see that if we try to change the scale of it, we have almost no transitioning of it, and there's almost no artifacts forming. That's why you use 3-planar map for objects that appear to be hard to map. Unless you need to do a close-up, then you need to do unwrapping, and it's going to be problematic from now on. But this is how you can do it. And you also ask how to create this subtle effect when it comes to your pipes, right? I mean, this one object, was it your faucet? Yeah, I think so. So we're just going to make this golden color, add a little bit of it. So let's go for something like this. Again, this is not perfect, so let's, instead of adding this as diffuse, add it as glossiness. And you can barely see that there's any problem with the mapping itself. So there's basically no problem. And what I'm going to do is try to unplug it for a second, check my glossiness, and let's say I want to set it to something 0.8, so it's going to look exactly how I like it. And now, since we have this object, let's just add a little bit of iteration so it's going to be smooth. Now we have this object and we re-add our glossiness map, so those two don't mix yet. That's why we're just going to force it to. And now we have a really subtle effect of this glossiness. We have exactly the level of glossiness we wanted, and we still have this small reflection glossiness effect where we have this small dirt, a little bit of fingerprints or whatever map you use. And of course, you can still use some kind of bump map that is going to still add a little bit more detail to your objects. Of course, don't abuse this unless you're doing close-ups, but you can basically see what I mean. It's just that we're going to be able to add a lot of detail just by using one map that we really love. It's so versatile that I use it almost all the time in most of my shots. So I would definitely recommend you to do the same thing. Just find a map that is working for you. Once you're done with the map that you wanted to create, remember, put it in your library, rename it like this. So Goldo 2, and this is going to be easy. From now on, it's just going to be like that. Guys, I guess this concludes our webinar. I was supposed to talk a little bit more about the close-ups and how to re-add them, how to fix the materials, but we're going to talk about it on our next webinar and during our support hours, because there's just a lot of stuff to talk about in your interiors. So again, right now I want you to focus on finishing your interiors. All of those of you that think that are behind, please spam me and spam Tony, restless spam, and we're going to try to come up with all the solutions, make your renders beautiful. And remember that we're going to advise you to use something called render farms to render out your shots. Right now, we would recommend you Anima Renderer. This is one of those services that are really good. So basically, by creating an account, you get free points to test them out. The support here is really great. So in case of any questions regarding the usage of this website and their software, please contact their support. They will help you out and they will be more informed than we are. So the support officer is already here. So now Anima Renderer is going to work great with Corona, all the versions. So don't hesitate and just use it. Is there a kind of Corona Cloud render? There is something that could be called like that because they are actually part of Chaos Group, but right now it's unavailable just for at least 5 months more, because they are actually rebuilding it to work with something called NVIDIA Flow or Waterfall. It's going to be amazing, super fast, and UI. AI. So basically something really tremendously good. Guys, please check your homework. It's going to be fun to work with, and of course try to make sure that all of you work on your interiors. We are running out of time, but there's still a lot of it to work with. I mean, there's still a lot of time to try to get into your to finish your interiors. It's not a problem to do so because, you know, guys, we're there to help you, and that's why we're going to try to do it as best as we can. So as I was saying, you're going to have a lot of information on this cloud rendering, and of course about the render setup, how and when you want to change your render setup, when it is supposed to end. And remember that with noise limit set to 4 or 5, you can start using NVIDIA Fast Denoise or NVIDIA AI or whatever the name you already you have right now in it. The NVIDIA is going to be okay as long as you have newer NVIDIA graphics card. This is the only reason why graphic card may play a role when buying your computer, but remember, it's not that important. And to get, as Miki or Andrea asked, I'm not really sure who was that, to get to the level of really clean render, to make it smooth, you need to set the noise limit level to 5. This time, we won't be starting the interactive render. We will hit the big render button, okay? So, as always, remember that we need you to upload your screens as shown before. So your render, next to it, we need your inspiration. This way, we're going to be able to swiftly move through your folders. Thank you very much for your attention and see you on the next webinar on Friday. Bye-bye.